So we are here this afternoon with Kellee Reinhart, and Kellee is University of Alabama System Senior Vice Chancellor for Communication and Community Relations. And Kellee, before we get started, I just want to say thank you on behalf of the entire team at Yellowhammer. We are just so thrilled to be able to share your story, and thank you for allowing us to do it.
Well, it's a privilege. Thank you, Allison.
So, my goodness, over the last 4 decades in the field of communications, there must have been just many challenges that you have faced. Are there any in particular that have created a great learning experience, and how have you overcome them?
Well, I would say back in the day, in the 70s and the 80s, work-life balance was not really part of the conversation. But in a field that I chose that is so driven by deadlines and crisis and unexpected complications, just trying to also successfully raise a family and participate fully in the life of a community is probably the thing that I've had to work the hardest to accomplish. But having a good supportive husband makes all the difference in the world. A sense of humor, even in the darkest hour, and just that old-fashioned tenacity to keep pushing have gotten me to this point.
So are there any of those you feel like that are unique to being female, and are there any that maybe perhaps gender has helped you be successful in those things?
Well, first of all, I think as a mother, you really hate it when your children are the last 2 kids waiting outside the school to be picked up, or that you are far away for a recital or a football game. That has been, that's a challenge because you want to be 2 places at once, and it's just not always possible. But to get to your second question about being a woman and what the positives that bring to those challenges, I think it's a sense of empathy. And not to say that the men with whom I have worked over these 4+ decades don't bring heart and passion to their positions, but I think that having a workplace where women play a key role creates a perfect balance.
And you are not alone in the last one's picked up category. I have to raise my hand to that one as well. I think I don't know many working moms who haven't been in that situation.
Yeah. It's okay. My children safely grew to adulthood. They now have children of their own. And frankly, every once in a while, when one of them is making a mad dash to get to the school or to the soccer field, they kind of look at me with a little more compassion in their eyes too.
Absolutely. Resiliency, and then later in life, hopefully respect.
That's it.
So what professional achievements or experiences are you most proud of?
Well, it's right here at this very moment. To be a part of Chancellor Fest St. John's team to safely reopen these 3 campuses with a plan that we literally watched our chancellor develop and then spearhead with the wonderful world-renowned medical experts at UAB. And we began all of this back in March. So it was before there was really a lot of conversation, when COVID testing was something that was almost an abstract. And then to begin to put those pieces in place and then get the campuses open. And now, here we are. It has not been without extraordinary challenge, but last night the Blazers had a wonderful win on the football field, and UA and the Crimson Tide are scheduled to play on the national arena in Missouri tomorrow. Our students are, it's been a learning experience for all of us, and they have been so patient. And first, that excitement of getting back to school and seeing friends, and it was like, COVID what, and why a mask? And it didn't take long. Just later today, we will release our updated COVID-19 dashboard that comes out of our office here. And over the past 3 weeks, we have just sliced those positive numbers just down to a very bare minimum. So it's been a privilege to be a part of that. And certainly we're grateful to Yellowhammer for the coverage that you've given us as we have forged this new pathway.
And I can only imagine that tackling an obstacle like that, from the necessary multitude of facets that have to be considered. So you mentioned empathy before. How did empathy uniquely help position you to communicate on behalf of the university?
Well, to be understanding about the challenges and the worries that people have, not to be dismissive, whether it is a faculty member who has a compromised health situation and really needs the benefit we've been able to provide for them to have those, special circumstances so that they can teach remotely, to a parent from perhaps across the country or the other side of the world who is entrusting us with their children and counting on us to fulfill our promises to them. Or if it is the first responders at our hospital, or those in law enforcement who we are looking to help us make sure that the compliance standards are safely and carefully carried out. So just to empathize with what people are dealing with and to work as a team. And let me add here too, Allison, none of this would be possible without the support of our Board of Trustees, because there are 15 elected board members, plus of course, Governor Ivey, who serves ex officio, and the trustees also in supporting the plan and endorsing the plan, they put a lot of faith into our ability to day after day carry out all the specifics of it. So their hats off to them, and just to everyone who's been a part of this. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a science fiction movie, don't you? Right?
It's probably a good analogy.
Yeah, it's like, there's this unseen enemy there, this virus, and some days I just think, now, what's this mask all about? And what are we doing? But we are doing it, and we're doing it successfully. So it's a blessing.
So this certainly is just a very, unique challenge in itself. But over the course of your career, you've worked in media and media relations. How have you seen the news industry change and evolve?
Oh, wow. Well, I feel really lucky that I have gotten to see the before and now where we are. And I have to tell these stories to my grandchildren. First newspaper office I ever visited was the Denver Post. And I knew from the time I was a child that journalism in some form or fashion would be my career. And I remember going on that tour of the Post and going back into the production facilities where there were men with heavy asbestos gloves, literally pouring hot type that would be made into words and headlines. So then during my own career in publishing for 15 years, when I worked for the late Gray Boone and we were in the magazine business, to, everything had transitioned to cold type, and we were still doing manual paste up. And now to see where journalism has evolved, evidenced by the Yellowhammer and just all the various platforms, I would have never imagined we would be here. But I also want to say, I have so much respect for journalists today, because your world is so vastly different from my time in a newsroom. You don't have the benefit of a big room full of colleagues, and a small specialized beat. The people who used to cover higher ed now are doing everything from city government to crime, plus wedging in coverage about colleges and universities and K-12. And I would say the other thing that has been such a sea change is that writers no longer have the benefit of layers of editing. So it would go to the copy editor, and then it would go to the city or state editor, and then it might go through another set of eyes before it landed in print. And now the burden's on every writer, because you're literally producing in real time. You are tweeting as an event is happening, which we love, and you're really responsible for your end product. So it's a big burden. And from my side of the desk now, what I try to do is put myself in their position, and think, okay, I know whether I can actually answer your question or not. I'm going to respond to you. I'm going to attempt to give you information that will be helpful to what you're doing and that will serve your audience. So anyway, it's in some ways it's using the old school skills that I've always had, but in this new environment that is changing at light speed.
No doubt, and continues to change just as quickly as it has. Your bio is just packed with contributions that you have made in the arts, and in the variety of arts. So what role do the arts play in your life?
Well, I was thinking about that in preparation for our conversation today, because that would be probably the third thing in non-ranked order that has been the most meaningful to me as a citizen of Alabama, a transplant here. Came here from out of state for college and remained, and my husband did the same. But we first got involved in the arts now we are neither musicians nor actors, nor potters nor painters, but we love the arts experience. We raised our children out at the annual Kentuck Festival here in West Alabama, and one thing just led to the other. And for me, it was the ability to help communicate the value of the arts and help those organizations tell their story, find the right funding partners, and broaden their audiences. So it's been fun to be a ticket holder and to be in the trenches of helping put on an event. And frankly, that's another big challenge for arts organizations right now. And I'm really glad to be able to continue to do a bit of that. I've just finished my tenure as 2-year tenure as president of the Tuscaloosa Symphony Orchestra Board. And this orchestra has stepped up with virtual programming and all kinds of ways to keep music in the forefront in our community and to wider audiences, while we're still not able to gather in the orchestra hall together. So it has just been, I guess, it's been the release for me also from the rigors of the deadlines and the crisis and the how do you, turn a sow's ear into a silk purse, and then you can go be a part of a creative community. And it's been great to play a very small part in helping put West Alabama on the Alabama state arts map.
Mm, absolutely. And so deserving of being on that map. It's just
Great.
such a well-rounded part of the Alabama arts community. So, after seeing these challenges, what do you think about the future of the arts, specifically in Alabama?
I think our future is incredibly bright. The diversity of our state, the wonderful personality and character of our people, and also I think the geography of Alabama is one of our great assets. Whether you're looking up in the foothills of the Appalachians or all the way down to the coast, just the hybrid mix of artists and craftsmen and writers and the audiences that support them give our state, I think, a really unique and valuable vantage point and, a competitive edge, if you ask me.
Mm. And you mentioned, so much of your field is dealing in crisis communication. What advice, after being in the trenches over and over and over again, what advice do you have for organizations and that might be facing a crisis and how best to communicate?
First of all, I would suggest to everybody at the table, listen carefully to the voices that are not only with you, but that are outside of your arena. Be truthful with yourself about what the obstacles as well as the strategies are, and then begin to develop a methodical plan. Now, when I say begin to develop, you may have to develop it in 2 hours, or 30 minutes, but it needs to be something that's thought out. You need to be prepared to take some risk. As our chancellor has said a number of times, mistakes will be made. But if you're not thinking boldly and you're not prepared to take on the challenge of solving a big problem, then everyone loses. So then I would say, whatever you promise, you need to be prepared to deliver. Or you need to be honest and publicly alter your course, whatever that is. But and keep it simple. That's something that we've all heard since we were children. But I think that to overparse an issue or add on too many layers of secondary goals or complicated, pathways can really slow your progress and hinder you from achieving a successful outcome.
What would you say has been just the most rewarding part of your career journey?
I'm from rural Nebraska. And by the time I graduated from high school in South Florida, I had lived in 10 states and gone to 12 schools. So it was a gypsy life. And I came to the University of Alabama as an undergraduate, kind of on a whim. And now looking back on that, nearly a half century, believe it or not, to have been part of the modern history of this state, whether in higher education, whether in publishing, or in the volunteer work that Steve and I have done and continue to do. To feel now like a native and to have my children, both my son and daughter were born here, our grandchildren make their home here. So to feel truly like an Alabamian is, I think we very much feel like we're home.
That's great. I was speaking with one of your colleagues who mentioned to me that listening to you speak was word calligraphy. How have you developed such just a graceful and effective communication skill?
Well, I give all the credit to radio because that was one of my very first jobs. When James Spann was the scrawny 14-year-old that he describes walking into Burt Banks' radio station, WTBC, I was there. That was part of the work I did to get through college. And I also wrote the radio commercials. And so when you learn how to say 60 seconds worth of a message in only 30 seconds, because that's what your client's budget allows, you learn to choose your words carefully, to add color to them when it's appropriate, and when to put a punctuation mark at the end.
That's great. Well, last question. If you could give some advice to anyone just aspiring to be an industry leader, whether maybe that's education or business or government, I mean, you certainly have well qualified to give advice on the spectrum here. But what would that be to someone just getting started?
Take measured risk, set your goals high, do your homework, and reiterating what I said earlier, when you make a promise, keep it. And let me also say, as the third grader who thought that journalism would be the end piece of a long career, I never thought about exploring higher education. And it has turned out to be the absolute ideal match for my skills, my personality, and the work that we do together. So I would also say pivot if possible and look at new opportunities, whether it is changing the focus of the industry you're in, or if you're perhaps early on in your career, explore new opportunities, ask questions, reach out to people like me, and we'll be sure and do our best to guide you.
It's been wonderful to spend some time with you, and on all of these interviews, we have just heard that idea of mentorship and reaching out and asking for sponsorship over and over again. So thank you for your willingness to do that, to help those of us that are still, trudging along.
Well, you're going to do great. Sure.
Well, this has been just such a fun experience for us. And again, all of us from Yellowhammer just say congratulations, and we really, really appreciate you spending the time with us.
Well, we appreciate that, and thank you again for following us and keeping up with the activities of the University of Alabama system, and there's lots more good news to come.